Here. Happy Friday. How are you doing, Bodhi?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Pam?
I'm doing well. Great to see you.
You too. Thank you.
And hello to my Facebook family. Happy Friday. Hope you guys have all had a great week. We've got an amazing interview here for you this morning. So we're going to go ahead and get started in just a minute or two. Give people a minute to jump on to join us. So how's your week been so far?
It's been well. It's getting chilly here.
Oh, it is? Okay. So how warm is it?
Oh, it's been about in the 30s.
Okay. Yeah, that is getting
What's the temp over there?
What is it today? I don't even know actually. Just say I'm kind of holed up in my house. I haven't even left my house yet. So it's sunny though. That's what's really nice. It's super sunny, blue skies. So all
That
right.
helps.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. Last minute hair adjustments. Quick sip of my sparkling water. And we are ready to go. All right. Hi, I'm Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people step into their authentic realities via a number of different modalities. This podcast is one of them. We also have a private Facebook group, and you can find us at liveauthentically.today/FB. I'm also super pumped that I just released my first book this year. It's called SOAR, SOAR, and you can check it out on Amazon. It's available in audiobook, paperback, and Kindle. I am super pumped to have with me on my show this morning, Bodhi Simpson. Hi, Bodhi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited about our discussion today. Bodhi is an art therapist, and she is going to talk to us all about how her work helps heal other people and helps them through art. So I'm super excited to talk with you about that. But before we jump into everything about you and what you do, I would love for you to answer the question that I start off every show with, and that is, what does it mean to you to live authentically every day?
Okay, so let's see. For me, to live authentically every day is to take time to be vulnerable and to really tune in and listen to the guidance of my heart, which sometimes is a whisper, sometimes is like really loud. Um, but yeah, I feel like if I am connecting to my humanity and being vulnerable and following what feels like truth for me, then that's living authentically.
I love that. Such a good answer. So how do you do that? I mean, how do you tap into, you know, to feeling that and to, to your inner self? Can you tell me a little bit more about how you do that, or do you meditate? I mean, what do you do to get in touch
Yeah,
with your
yeah.
authenticity?
I'll share with you my process, which would probably look totally different from anybody else's.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of part of our experience in this world is to find out what that is for each of us.
Right.
So for me, the way I've found that is through creating.
Okay.
Um, what I realized is that when I create anything, could be scribbles or just put something outside of myself, I can start to see kind of like the emotional energy that's been weighing on me, and then I can start to feel the truth of what I actually feel underneath all of that.
Mhm.
And the other thing that happens is as I'm creating and I'm kind of shifting and it's just kind of playing, I can start to see beyond what's weighing on me. So I feel like it helps me to connect like how I truly feel with like a clear perspective. So for me, it's working through it physically with
I
art.
I love that. And creativity is also such a big piece of who I am, and I'm super excited to talk to you about that, particularly because it's been a huge catalyst in my spirituality. think, creativity is, it's that energy of creation, right? It's that, it's that energy that the universe originated from. And we all have that. And, that's a direct line to our spirituality, to our highest self. And I'd love to dive into that a little bit during the course of the episode. I mean, creativity, I preach this, like I said, I've been practicing it for a long time, not a professional, like I'm not a trained, artist like you are, et cetera, but photography and creativity can be anything, right? It can be any way to
Exactly.
express yourself. So
Yeah.
we can dive specifically. I want to talk to you about you and your practice, but what are some creative endeavors? Let's just start really high level. Let's say someone says, I'm looking to express myself more creative. What are some creative
Mm.
endeavors that you can suggest that people begin to dabble in?
Well, I always like to have the doorway that you just said, which is like the way we live our lives is an art.
Yeah.
So anything we do can be a meditation. Anything we do is an expression through us. And so I really like to help work with people to kind of figure out what is it they do in their lives that give them that experience where they lose track of time, where they enter into that flow state where sometimes you even lose track of yourself as a human on the earth. Like you're just totally in that creative energy. Um, but if people need like really clear guidance, what I recommend is just getting yourself, if you're interested in using art as the doorway, get some pastels, get some newsprint. It doesn't have to be expensive. You can get charcoals. You can go out in the driveway in the dirt. It's it can be anything. And just start playing, just start moving around, just start making marks. Just mark making is part of being human.
I'm curious, I hear you talk about this. I'm always curious about people's paths, like how did they get to where they are? And I'm wondering for you, was there a particular catalyst or was there a particular moment that opened your eyes to the connection between creative endeavors and your divinity?
Yes. And it's funny, I spent a lot of my life, like the first half, being like resentful for all of these wonderful experiences that now have been the greatest learning. Like what we go through is what is the building block to who you are and to,
Like,
find your gifts. And yeah, I was born into a family like many of us that, my parents, in looking back now after, being trained in this field, my parents, lived through trauma and unhealed trauma, and they were parenting me through that lens.
mhm,
So I remember as a little girl being scared because I was seeing their trauma come out as they were parenting me and
yeah.
being really confused. Like I was first born and like, oh, life is like magical and so fun and everything's possible, and then everything's really scary. Being really lost and really confused because some of the messages I was receiving from my family and even the world conflicted with, I felt like I had this little whisper in my heart that would say like, that's not right, or no, that's not the truth. And so what I would do is I would make art. So the way I started is, I feel like I started like all of us doing art like in school, but then when something really scary would happen, I would go lock myself in the bathroom and I would draw a picture of what was happening, and it would often look really scary, like blood, scary,
Oh, wow.
just whatever way I could express the feeling of fear and anger. And I would get it on the paper, and then I knew if my parents had seen it, I would get in trouble because it was like usually about them. And so I would rip it up real tiny, and I would either flush it down the toilet or hide it behind the furnace.
Mhm.
Um, so I started that way, and I always feel better after. I'd be like, okay, I got it out. And then what I started doing was I would create these characters that um, it's almost like as I drew them, they were like cartoons, but they had like I could tell they loved me. Like
Mhm.
they were like I created like family or characters that loved me. And as I looked at I know this sounds kind of crazy, but as I looked at the characters that I drew, I would kind of put them on my wall, and I would kind of talk to them in my mind, and I would feel love for them, and I would feel their love for me. And through my life, what I've realized as an adult now is I really believe I was connecting to a lot of different energies around me and within the universe, and they were kind of like guides that were kind of becoming visible as I was creating that were there for me and that have helped me, and that through the creative process I was able to see that they were there. and to feel them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you were able to tap into your divinity and your connection to higher powers, your higher self, all of that through art. You were able to experience those emotions and experience that release. And I would love to hear you talk about how you decided to embark on this for your life purpose, for your life path. Was there a particular experience? Was there a particular conversation? Was there a particular epiphany or aha moment that you said, this is why I'm here?
Yeah, I always knew this was who I was. But then as you get older, everybody tells you when you're trying to figure out, like, okay, what am I going to do? They say, oh, art isn't a career. Or
Yeah.
they would say it like negative, like, oh, maybe you could be a social worker someday. Like, maybe you're smart enough for that. So I just feel like for whatever reason, I was feeling through my life, I felt not worthy, not good enough, not smart. All I could do was draw. That was it. I didn't realize it was such a gift. And I started school as going to school for mental health and human services because I wanted to understand kind of what was happening within my family, and it was helping connect the dots. And there was a point where I wanted to help people more. I wanted to be a therapist. I wanted to really help people work with their traumas. And I myself at that time I hadn't healed my traumas enough. Um, and so I found a program called clinical art therapy. And I had literally never heard of this field in my life. And I
Mhm.
was like, what the heck is clinical art therapy? And so I'm researching it, and it's basically the marriage of psychotherapy, human development, artistic expression, and allowing the creative process to help people see the energy creating their lives, to
Mhm.
work through, traumas and belief systems, and then to start to create and vision the life they want to, and feel into it and step into it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is who I am. So I applied to school, and it was only out of state. They didn't have any of this in Maine. We still don't. And so I'd never driven past Augusta, which is 20 minutes from my house ever. And this school was 3.5 hours away.
Mhm.
So I applied to school, and I told everybody, I'm applying, but I'm not going to go because I knew I just couldn't, there was no way I could go, but I just wanted to see if I could get in. And
Mhm.
so I applied, and then I was in a terrible car accident, and it was about 100-mile-an-hour impact. I fell asleep at the wheel.
Oh my God.
I broke somebody's legs. Like, it was just so bad. And I I remember like going to the hospital, and everybody was so serious, and they were like, oh my gosh, she has internal bleeding. Um, she might not make it through the night. It was like this big thing. And I was like, oh man, I'm gonna die. This really stinks. I really never found myself. And then, like, I don't know if it was, I can't even remember if it was later that night or the next morning. I don't remember if I spent the night or not. They came in and they were like, this is a miracle. You don't have one broken bone. None of like, all the internal bleeding stopped. And I was bruised, like, from head to toe, and I had glass in my body, but I walked away, and I wanted to see my car. So I told my boyfriend at the time, I want to stop by and see the car. So I called the place, and they said, it's such a shame that the young girl died. And I said, what do you
Yeah.
mean? And they said nothing's left of the car. They said everything is completely demolished. Even the keys were shattered. And so when I got to the car, the only thing left intact was the driver's seat where I was sitting. Keys were shattered, everything around. And I mean, I was just like, the wind was knocked out of me to realize how I feel like that was like in my adult life, like, consciously, like, there is a reason I did not die in that. Like, how did I not die in that accident? And how am I okay? And I got home, and I think there was a voicemail on my phone when I got home from the hospital that said, hey, this is Springfield College down in Mass. We got your application, and we'd like you to come for an interview. And I told my boyfriend, I said, oh, it's so cool. I did get in, but I'm not going to go. And he said, I am literally going to be mad at you if you don't go to this because this is who you are. And so I was like, okay, but you have to drive me. I don't even dare to drive more
Yeah.
than half an hour. So he drove me. I had the interview. I got accepted. I said yes. And that's really where my life went from there. Was like, I feel like a baby. I don't know how to be a grown up. I don't know who I am, but I'm following my heart. And that's kind of led me to where I am here.
I love that. So let's rewind to that, like that moment when you saw the car, I mean, completely destroyed, but the driver's seat was intact. How do you explain that? What do you attribute that miracle to?
Yeah, it literally shattered. I knew in that moment, I knew that I lived for, I knew there was a reason. I know it sounds silly, but I just, when you have that feeling like, you know what they say, sometimes you have to be kind of hit upside the head by a 2x4 to take the right path. At
Yeah.
that time in my life, I was really starting to go down a really not good path. I was just, um, I was making a lot of not good choices for myself. And yeah, it woke me up and I saw clearly. And I kept saying to myself, well, maybe maybe I died and this is like an alternate reality, or, I could have died anyway. So this is like borrowed time. So that's kind of like the thinking I had. And I still have, it's like, I'm still here. So I might as well be who I am.
Right. And that is such a powerful story. I mean, those heart awakening catalysts, we all have them in our lives. Sometimes they're, and they don't have to be anything, always super serious, right? But they could be a piece of music or a piece of art or a poem that stirs us and causes us to see our lives and see the world a different way. But ultimately the universe wants us all to wake up. I mean, that's the ideal. That's the goal here is life is a series of opportunities to awaken. And what happens is the universe keeps ramping up the catalyst, right? I mean, I know that, from my own life experiences, I look back, I lost a baby in the third trimester when I was in my early 30s, but I had a very early pregnancy loss years before that. And like that didn't really, I mean, I was sad for a little while, but like that didn't really move me. And I feel like the universe has been, it kind of nudges me. It has been popping in these more significant heart awakening catalyst. And the idea is the goal is to hear the whispers, really to
Yes.
cultivate our self-awareness and to really listen to the whispers so that something like really serious and catastrophic doesn't happen. And so fortunately, you were able to wake up in that moment and say, okay, I need to take a new life path. But and those are opportunities. You chose to dig really deep and reframe that or reframe that experience as an opportunity to step into your greatness. And I think that is super powerful, and it is a testament to your connection with your divinity, the connection to the divine, connection to a higher power, and to your purpose. And ultimately what you're doing through your work is you're moving humanity forward. Your work is is healing people on a daily basis. And I think that is just so amazing.
It is such a beautiful awareness, isn't it? That as we wake up and as we heal ourselves, the world around us heals, the
Right.
future heals, the past heals. It does feel that way.
It really does. And if you think about how many lives you're healing, right? And that has a ripple effect, right? So the people that you heal, you help them step into their most, healed authentic self, and then they impact other people. So it really does have a ripple effect. Let's talk a little bit about the work that you do on a daily basis. So can you tell me about what your daily work looks like, who your clients are, and ultimately where I'd like to go is how you witness healing in your clients. But let's start with, what do you do kind of on a daily basis?
Yeah, so at this point in my practice, I've worked with all different ages, all different populations. Um, I used to try to define who I worked with. I thought it was trauma, and then I realized I work with humans. Humans bring their trauma, or they bring their grief, or they bring their strengths. So I work with humans who are willing and open to their own healing. And I feel like a big part of my job is truly holding space for people to learn how to face their own truth. And so most people do not pick to work with me because I'm an art therapist. Actually, probably 90% of the people that pick me say I looked nice in my ad, or my approaches just feels different. It feels like, they've dealt with the same problem over and over through talk therapy for 30 years, and they feel like they haven't ever really accessed the root. So I feel like a lot of my work is just helping humans to remember where sometimes we've never really connected to who we really are, and really find their footing in that place and then build a foundation from there. I guess a lot of the work is kind of like undoing,
Okay.
kind of like taking apart what we believe to be true. First, we have to notice and we have to face our traumas and why we believe something. But often the lens we see life through is not the truth. It's based on what we've been through and what we feel based on that. And so, yeah, there's a lot of undoing and then rebuilding.
So is there talking through the too? And then can you tell me a little bit about what that looks like?
You're like, no, what is it? So yeah, it's different.
Let's say I'm a client, like I come to you and I
Okay.
just want to work with you, Bodhi. So let's say I'm stuck, I'm spinning my wheels in certain areas of my life. Can you help me?
So you might come in, this is very common. You'll come in and you'll have the dialogue, you'll have the story that you already decided you were going to tell me, or that you told the other therapist, or that you've been living your whole life. And I'll take notes and the first session will be gathering your history or what your perspective is. And um, from there on, I'll ask you if you're open to maybe trying other ways of expressing yourself. And you may feel really nervous if this is uncomfortable for you. Even the artists that, the people that consider themselves artists, there's a lot of with art, there's a lot of perfectionism. I feel like there's a lot of how we think something should be. And so a lot of my job is just to help people realize that, again, our life is an art, and we're going to use these creative processes, these tools that I'm going to teach you, as a metaphor for your larger life. So we may be doing something with our hands, but again, we're really accessing the feeling state so that you can step out of my office and bring that frequency into your life. So it's kind of like a practice place. And it's really about the process of creating, so much more than the product. So sometimes you will leave with something that, like around my office, I have these things called anchors. Like this could be considered an anchor, which is something you create consciously and you put it up in your space and it's going to remind you of what you're working on. So when I created this one, I was really tuning into what's happening in the world right now, the movement within the world, the movement in myself,
Mhm.
but also tapping into the movement of the earth and the movement of the earth around the sun and the movement of the cosmos, and like tuning into the fact that things are moving, but they're moving even bigger than we are. Like we're part of all of this. So this reminds me of that.
Mhm.
But most of the work you would do, again, in the beginning, a lot of it is just clearing, helping you to become. So I might give you some newsprint and some pastels and just say, I just want you to choose the colors that feel right with something on the paper. And
Okay.
you might draw this little black dot.
Mhm.
And then what I do is whatever you create, I place it next to me so that it becomes another being in the room and you're witnessing. So you step out of the experience, the emotional experience that keeps you stuck, and you step into this larger perspective, this witness perspective. And then we speak about this through metaphor as though it's another being. So you can really get curious. You can ask it questions and you answer. I'll ask you questions. I might challenge you to go deeper around what feels like your truth, and what that feels like for you. And maybe during the session, you'll realize, man, I don't want to live like that anymore. And then I might give it back to you and say, what could you do differently? And you might do something different. And then, so basically, it's like we're taking the invisible, we're bringing it into the visible, we're working it, and then I'm me and your art are a mirror back to you of your own process. So I'm not telling you anything except helping you develop a relationship with yourself, um, without the emotional stuckness that I feel like that's what keeps us stuck a lot is the grief, the pain, the
Right.
sadness. Does that make sense? But it could be any different material based on what you're interested in.
Okay. I love how you said you talked about perfectionism, and it's not about what does the final product look like, but it's more about the process. It's more about the journey. And I love that because that is just, I talk about that all the time in my work in spirituality. It's about the journey, right? It's not about the destination. I think so many times we're so focused on getting to the destination and we miss out on the process. We miss out on the experience, the joy that's happening. And the joy really is in the journey, right? It's in the discovery,
Exactly.
the creating. And
Yes.
I'm wondering, how do you, because I believe that we are all conditioned to be destination focused. We're brought up, we're conditioned to be focused on outcomes and goals. And yes, those are important, but I think we don't soak in the experiences as much as we should. So what do you do? How do you get your clients to shift from that destination focused mentality to the journey or the process focused mentality?
Yeah, this is why I love the creative arts or the expressive arts or anything you do is like it's an action focused work. It comes through the body, which really helps you to build a foundation around that mindfulness based presence, really being present now. And a lot of people come in, for instance, to therapy, and they have this like, oh, I'll say, okay, how do you want to be feeling by the time we're done working? And they'll say, geez, I want to be feeling peace. I want to be feeling love. And to them, it's like they haven't felt it. Most people I work with are feeling very disconnected from their bodies, very numb, and that's part of the issue is they're just not feeling what they want to be feeling. And so I may have them, for instance, maybe I would have you do a watercolor painting, just kind of wet on wet, just dropping in colors connected to all the things you just said, peace and love. And what I want you to do is you would just be practicing. So what color feels like peace? Maybe it's blue for you. You grab blue, and then I want you to we do a visualization just to open up, and you practice feeling blue, and you're allowing the vibration of peace to be through your body, and we're holding. So it's a creative meditation. You're holding the practice of peace, and then when you're done, I would take your creation, I would hold it up, and you would say, I would say, were you able to feel that as you were creating? And most people say, a little. Or, some people say no, but it was fun. It was relaxing. Like feels like it felt good. Um, and so a big piece of the work is helping people also understand the brain science behind all of this. Neuroplasticity now shows us that our brains don't know the difference between something really physically happening or something we're imagining happening. So if you can learn how to consciously develop the feeling states that you want to be feeling, and practicing it, there are actually synapses forming in your brain and connecting. So basically you're connecting your heart and mind. So the more you practice it, so I'll just tell my clients, we're going to keep practicing this. And then what happens is there's one day where they go, oh my gosh, I feel it. I feel it. So it's like I think by tying in the science helps our brains that are kind of like, this is stupid. I'm just watercoloring. There's no point to this. But yeah, there's a lot behind the scenes that is happening within your physiology to help you to feel. And I don't remember what the question was, but I feel like that's how we help shift is now. How do we, okay, yes, in 3 months, by the time we're done, you want to feel peace. How do we start now? I don't really like the term fake it till you make it, but it's kind of like that. It's like I guess that's why it's called a practice. We
Right.
find daily practices until it becomes a habit.
I love that. Let's talk a little bit about color and its connection to emotions. Because I know
Mm,
I'm the colors that I surround myself with in my house affect my mood. I like to have nice, peaceful, calming colors. And I find that for me, certain, energizing colors like red or orange, like they just aren't as, they don't induce the same feelings that, the cooler colors do. So do you find, first of all, my first question is, do you find that when people come to you with traumas that they're trying to heal, that they gravitate towards certain colors first before you really start the process of talking them through the feelings and everything? Do you find that, let's say, certain emotions such as anxiety and stress and guilt and all of that are tied to certain colors over others?
well, honestly, there's so much research in this realm. And what I've found is it's really individual.
Okay.
Like for somebody, anxiety might be gray and black, and somebody else might be hot pink.
Okay.
It's in their expressions. But I notice a lot of people coming in are very much dressing in dark colors, in grays, in neutrals. And then when they're doing these exercises, so for instance, peace, somebody might say, oh, peace is light blue. And then what would happy be? What would happy be? Oh, that's yellow, and they're playing with blue and yellow. And I'll say, do you ever wear blue or yellow? And they'll say, never. And my house is total neutral. So we'll say, Okay, so in session I might get out like friendship bracelet string or beads, and we make a bracelet with blue and yellow beads. And
Okay.
they're like, to them, it's like, oh my gosh, like this is so flashy. Um, but yeah, really helping people. So a big part of this work is helping people learn how to open, because I feel like we close up and then we disconnect from how we actually want to be feeling, but we close up in protection, as a defense. We just don't realize we do it. So yeah, I feel like that's a lot of the work, is just subtly connecting to colors around you. And so if somebody is like, their color of happy is yellow and their whole house is painted in grays, it
Mhm.
might challenge them. We could make something artistically yellow and you put that in your kitchen, or maybe you paint your kitchen yellow, or
Okay.
get some yellow curtains. Or so we have a lot of fun with it. And I'm telling you, people come in and they are like, so then their work would be, every day, every morning, I want you to open up and connect to the feeling of yellow and of blue, and allow it, in your mind, fill your body with these colors, step
Mhm.
out of your house with these colors. You got your bracelet if you need it. I feel like a lot of us need something to hold on to remember.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, the color, there's just, and with the emotions, there's a cool book called Power versus Force. I don't know if you've ever heard of it,
Got it.
but you'll have to check it out. They measure the frequencies of different emotional states.
Okay.
So like it's a nice way to show people that energetically, the feeling vibration of like shame and guilt, like the lowest, have a very different feeling than the higher vibration frequencies, which is like joy. Well, there's peace, joy, compassion. So I really like to help people understand on an energetic level, like the frequencies of these feelings, so they can start to notice within themselves. That's what's going to show up on the page in the art of what frequency are you vibrating at. And then visually you can see, okay, yellow, what frequency is that for you? That's joy. And so like there's a lot of energetic work, I feel like, that comes in, um yeah, just to help people kind of understand that whole realm, because everything's energy, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to ask you, what is the part of what you do?
Hmm,
What is the most challenging part of your job?
this is a good question. I think just the telemarketers that call me in between sessions, just the outside world. Um there's nothing in the work that I do that's challenging, because my work is truly to hold space for people to find their path. It's not mine to find for them. I'm just a guide to help them build a relationship. Um, I do. I've learned how to live, my practice through my compassion center versus through empathy. That was a big learning. That was a challenge for me. Um, there are many times that I still go home at lunch and I cry to music, just a kind of a release. But I've learned how to, be present with my clients in a way that I'm not taking on responsibility for their healing, that I'm
Yeah,
holding space for them to do that.
I'm glad you mentioned I wanted to ask about, because I know as healers, as energy practitioners, whenever we're dealing with people who are bringing traumas, who are bringing their own challenges, how do we? One of the challenges that we can face is, how do we insulate ourselves from that, so that we don't take on their traumas and take on all of the stress. So, what do you do, in order to insulate and to protect yourself from that energy?
It froze up a little bit. I'm not sure. What did you just ask me a question, or were you
You know,
just
it's
talking?
on my end too. I did. Let me go ahead and let me re-ask that question. And then my producers can, I'm going to just pause for a couple seconds and then we can have a clean break. Okay, so what I wanted to ask you is, I know one of the challenges that a lot of spiritual healers, teachers, energy practitioners, et cetera, face is with energy, absorbing the energy of their clients. When people come to you with their past traumas and need healing, and, I deal with people who are suicidal sometimes. I mean, there's a lot of trauma there. There's a lot of energy there. And I'm wondering, what do you do to insulate yourself from that energy that your clients bring to you?
Yeah, so I have a daily practice in the morning where um, I align myself. I get really clear, and and I open up my heart, living from my heart, come into my session, and I have a practice where, say you're coming in and you've got a lot of trauma, a lot of really heavy stuff. It's almost like I have, so I'm very grounded. I have a grounding practice. I work
Mhm.
with my clients on also learning and grounding practice that we do in the beginning of sessions. And then I almost kind of like imagine this like vortex that opens up in my floor. And as people are talking, I'm almost imagining like I'm directing their heavy trauma. So instead of before, when I first started this, I used to like take it on and be like, oh, I can relate to you. I feel it. Now it's like I'm kind of directing their trauma kind of down into the earth. So I feel like I'm helping facilitate them in releasing, but I'm not taking it into my energy field. So we're kind of I don't know if this is going to make any sense, but and I'm staying really present with them through my compassion center. So through my heart, I'm present, but I'm not feeling empathy. I mean I may be a little because I'm human, but I'm not taking it in. So I feel like I've through my training in energy healing and energy medicine, I've learned how to because of this subtle work, I've learned how to open and tune into different energy centers in my body. And I work with this with my clients as well. So not sure if that makes sense, but I've learned practices. Um, and then when clients leave the room, I take a little bit of time. I might do some art or some other um, internal process to envision clearing the space so that it's a nice, squeaky clean, energetic space for the next person that comes in. So
Mhm.
it's all about kind of like learning how to take responsibility energetically, I feel like.
Yeah, I love that. And that's so important to again not take on their emotions, take on their feelings, but allow that processing to happen within them, right? And allow them to, you're facilitating their healing. So what is your favorite part of what you do? What's the part that brings you the most joy?
Before we move to that, I do want to say that doesn't mean there isn't a few sessions where I have tears come down my face. So I don't want you to think that I'm not human in those moments. I'm present, and we're taught in grad school to not feel the other person's emotions. But I feel like when I'm really present um, through compassion, that sometimes that happens. So I just wanted to say that. And what was the next question? Do you remember?
Yeah, what brings you, and I was actually, we're going to go to that question in just a second, but I wanted to echo that as well, that I experienced that too in my work. I mean, as much as I, have to stay strong and be the healer, the guide, the teacher, all of that. I mean, I still do have that human element that, I mean, some days are really challenging. I mean, I've woken up to texts before and I've had to talk people off the ledge. And, that's like really, really hard. But it's so important to, again, remember that spirituality again it's an individual journey. We aren't responsible for doing the healing for them. We're facilitators, we're awakeners, we're helping them step into their own truth, we're ushers, we're guides. And then
Yeah.
that disconnects us a little bit from taking on the emotions and absorbing the emotions, because it can be incredibly weighing. I know one of the other things you mentioned, you said, telemarketers as being a kind of a source of, just a little bit of just maybe a little noise in your day. And I want to expand on that a little bit too, because I'm glad you brought that up, because one thing I've been doing over the last couple of months is I've been making strides to quiet the pressure and noise in my life. And I think that is so incredibly important. I think that, to be aware of that, like what is getting in the way? What's noisy? What's pressuresome for me? And I think that's something we can all do in our lives, not just in our work, but just in our lives in general. What is causing me stress? What am I spending my time on that I shouldn't be? What are the little annoyances? And make steps to clear them so that you can come into your creative space, so that you can stay anchored with who you are, so that you can stay present, so that you can be grounded, so that you can step into your power and you can remain super aligned, because that's the place from which we draw all of our energy. That's the place from which we connect with our divinity. But I think the first step is being aware of like what's getting in the way and taking steps to quiet it. I'm glad that you
I
said
love how you could step into this metaphorical world with me. I feel like, yeah, everything is a teacher.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. The question that I asked you before was, what brings you the most joy? What like sets your soul on fire when you're doing, you're going about your work? What are those moments that really you feel like your soul is just, on fire?
Mm. My work with clients or in the world or
Well, specifically, I was going to ask you with clients first in your job, when you're working with clients, like what is one of those moments where you're like, you just get that feeling like, okay, this is just that affirmation, that cosmic wink, like, you're doing
yeah.
what you're supposed to be doing.
It's amazing when somebody, I feel like a lot of my job is like I people give their stuff to me and I give it back to them. Okay, now do you see this? See? Kind of helping them to see. And then there's a moment, which for some people is immediately, some people maybe 3 months into the work,
Yeah.
where they see, and you can see their life has changed. Their
Yeah.
whole, your life, I feel like with our perspective has changed, our life has changed because we see the world through a completely different lens. It's like 3D all of a sudden. Um, so that feels really beautiful.
Yeah, I'm sure that does. Yeah, there's no greater feeling than knowing that you've had a positive impact on the life of someone else. And this is again something we all can do. I mean, you're obviously dedicating to your life to it in a professional sense. I am as well, but we can all be healers and teachers of one another, right? We can
Yeah.
all help. We can all play a role in healing. I think there's been, no time in the history of this world that I can remember that has been fraught with more uncertainty and stress and anxiety, et cetera, that we're dealing with right now in the midst of this pandemic. But we can all step into our healing powers. I think we all have that within us. And if we can, extend a helping hand, if we can smile at a perfect stranger, if we can hold the door for someone, socially distanced, of course, but if we could, like, there's so many different ways that we can heal one another. And I think if we go through that mindset of like, how can we heal? How can I facilitate healing in another person? I think that we'll be changing the world every single day.
So true. It's so true. And as you're saying this, like what just came up in me is like the other day I was like really triggered and I don't try. I live my life really consciously and I'm still human and I reacted and I got snappy and um sometimes even when we're triggered, we're helping facilitate healing. I feel like sometimes the biggest healings came from me when I saw what wasn't working or somebody was acting in a way that I was like, "Oh, I don't wanna be like that," or
Mhm.
like my parents, for instance, like, now, thank goodness they triggered all these things in me because I was able to heal them. It's like it helped me to know where the healing was. So, sometimes even when we are doing something totally, like, triggery and I guess I don't want everybody to feel like if you're not like you said, if you're not living your life in the way that you really truly want to from your life, you're still facilitating healing because we're all mirrors back to each other, we're all connected, and, um but yeah, I guess the learning and the growth, that's the most important piece, being willing and being open
Right.
to learn and grow through all of it, yeah.
Like you mentioned the word trigger to those triggers, right?
Yes.
Anything that elicits an emotional charge within us, whether it comes from an internal source or an external source in our environment, someone else, et cetera, it's an opportunity. It actually illuminates a part of us that isn't healed. So it's actually an opportunity. So we have a choice in that moment, right? Do we stay stuck in that pattern? Do we stay in that place
Yeah,
of pain and suffering? Or do we make a choice to heal it? Right? Do we make a choice to move out of it and heal it? And that can be done through a number of different modalities, through spiritual healing, through art, which you do, through psychotherapy, through just lifestyle modalities that we can all do on a daily basis. Meditation, taking a walk in nature, exercising, juicing, eating super clean. I mean, those are all steps that we can take to heal ourselves on a daily basis.
I love that. So
Yeah,
true. Yeah, just yeah, staying aware.
exactly.
And
So
maybe
we're
just telling yourself if you're not doing it perfect. Like I feel like a lot of us like we want to exercise, we want to juice, we want to get up early and meditate, and we're not always. And so I feel like even just like what messages are you telling yourself? Like that's something I told myself. I'm growing through this. I am actively working on this. Like there's a gentleness to it.
right. And there needs to be, we need to extend grace and compassion to ourselves because, we have to stop beating the drum of what we're not doing enough and we aren't enough and we're not producing enough and just celebrate what we do, what we do accomplish. And sometimes, just being is just enough. We don't always have to be doing, we don't always have to be producing. but just being and just embodying a certain energy is enough, right? Being love for our family, being, embodying forgiveness for someone who needs forgiveness, things like that. Just holding that space for that energy is enough. So I think it's super important that we extend grace and compassion and give ourselves the latitude to do what we feel like our bodies and our minds and our spirits need in the moment.
Exactly. I feel like I took a whole year when I started noticing that whisper in my heart. I took a whole year, and all the year was figuring out what is a definite no. So I realized if it's not yes, if it's not like, yeah, I want to do that, it was always a no. So I said a lot of no's for a whole year. And now I know what that feels like to be like, yes, yes. But I feel like a lot of that's muddied for a lot of us because it's like what we think other people want for us, or
Oh, for sure, right, and we're so accustomed to operating in our head space, right, and I say that with no judgment, but when we drop down into our heart, when we live a soul-based life and we know what that feeling is like, we know what it feels like when something is aligned with who we are, then the no's and the yeses become very, very clear. It's like we're very easily able to delineate them and compartmentalize them, put them into different buckets, and if it's not a hell yes, it's a no, right?
exactly, exactly, totally.
So all right. Well, we are unfortunately just about out of time. I have enjoyed every minute of our conversation and I so wish we can continue it, but our time is up for the show. But I hope that this is the beginning of a lifelong friendship. It's been an honor to have you here today. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much. Thank you, Pam. This was wonderful. What a great conversation.
It really was. It was really a great start to my day. So thank you very much. I've loved everything about our conversation, the depth, the richness, the wisdom, the healing, the gorgeous painting behind you. I loved it all. So thank you very much. Before we close, do you have some words of wisdom that you would like to end with for our viewers and listeners?
Mm. I guess my words of wisdom would be find a daily practice, find something. It could be the most simple thing. It could be finding what color brings you peace and joy, and tuning into that. Um, that will be the doorway.
Beautiful. Thank you. And if people would like to get in touch with you directly, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yes, my website is Conscious Art Therapy, and my email is bodhisimpson@gmail.com. You can look me up online. There's not many Bodhi Simpson art therapists in Maine, so you'll probably find me pretty easily.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you again for being here. It was such an honor to share this space with you this morning.
Thanks.
And to all of our viewers and listeners, I would like to thank you as well. I believe that time is a choice, and I'm grateful that you have carved time out of your day to be here with me and Bodhi as she shared all of her knowledge and wisdom on healing through art therapy with us today. Thank you all again for being here and have a great day.